What's a funny memory you have that if you told someone, they'd think you're lying? I once checked in at a restaurant and gave the hostess my name to hold my slot. She then asked for my last name since the person below shared my first name. When I told her my last name, she looked at me like I was lying. The person below had my first and last name. She laughed and introduced us. And we took a pic. I've never met someone with my same first and last name since. I was in elementary school. During recess. Just kinda daydreaming and looking at some ravens flying overhead. When one of them suddenly took a nosedive. Right into an open trash can. So of course I rush over there to check it out. But the raven was just gone out of nowhere. I was not the only PNE who saw it though. Another kid came rushing over as well. And that's how I met my best friend for the next 4 years. A friend once called the wrong number, got the wrong house, and had the right person pick up. So, I was at work, replacing a modem for my boss. I'd removed the modem and connected a telephone to test that it had dial tone. Soon after, the phone rang. It didn't make much sense. Because that phone line had only been used for outgoing calls from the computer. When I picked up, the person on the other line just said, "Hey man, you wanna see a movie later?" Single quote. I recognized the voice, too. It was a friend of mine. I was really confused for a second and said something like, "Josh? How did you get this number?" Single quote. He said he called my home phone number. He must have misdialed my number. And accidentally dialed the number for my boss's modem line. At work. He called the wrong number. Got the wrong house. And the right person picked up. On a phone that had only been connected for 2 minutes in the past 2 years. The odds must be astronomical. It's just a weird coincidence that I'll always remember. Back in middle school I was walking back to class after lunch when someone chucked something down the hallway as hard as they could. My natural instinct was to jump up and catch it. It was a perfect catch and not a single person saw. It was a mozzarella stick. An eagle came for my face as a child. I was about 8. I ducked and it ended up grabbing my hair and taking some with it. I ran inside crying and told my mom. She didn't believe me, so I never told anyone else. I'm 22. Before my husband and I were married, but had been dating for a long while. I was watching Portlandia and bam, there's my husband on screen. Dumbfounded, I called him and he casually said, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." What would be the most terrifying message we can get from space? Human language. Any human language. Just a countdown timer with no other context. We're back to pick up the dodo birds you were supposed to look after. We have been communicating with dolphins for several hundred years and have agreed to their request to destroy you. Thank you for participating. The simulation is now ending. The most terrifying thing would probably be a message we can't fully decipher. Only knowing that it's a warning that will be important soon. It says what we can do to save ourselves, but we simple can't read it. We don't know and we can't prepare. What is a wholesome animal fact you know? When they hear running water, beavers will automatically start to build a dam. We know this because people put a speaker playing sounds of running water next to beavers. And the first thing they did was start building a dam on the speaker. Vampire bats will share food with other vampire bats who haven't fed in the last day or 2. Their metabolism means they die if they don't eat roughly every 3 days. This helps support members of the colony. Even though it puts the sharer at risk. It is considered one of the few forms of altruism observed in non-human animals. Orcas have incredibly complex social structures. They have different languages and regional dialects. They have names. They sing and dance. Pods that are close and speak the same language will mourn deaths and celebrate births together. Even from other pods. Other families. Their young are largely taught by the matriarch S of the pod, and they're able to teach verbally, rather than by showing. This means they have culture asterisk traditions, not just instinct or patterns. One of the only animals in the world that has that. Despite all the weirdness that is the platypus, they are still discovering weird things about it. Within the past 2 years it was discovered that platypus fur glows blue-green. https www.sciencenews.org/article/platypus-glow-blue-green-light-fluorescent fur. When exposed to ultraviolet light. I saw a video not too long ago of some research ravens given small toys to play with. When the researchers came to collect the toys, the ravens hid the toys and tried to trick the researchers into looking in fake hiding spots so they wouldn't find and take the toys away. Pigeons are not wild animals. They are feral. Every pigeon in your city is descended from escaped domesticated birds. You could catch and tame a pigeon just like any stray dog or cat. John Wick has a guy for his guns, a guy for his maps, and a guy for his suits. What premium service can you offer John Wick? I do dog boarding. Had he brought his dog to me in the first place, we wouldn't be in this whole mess. I could be his network guy. No matter where he goes, he would have fabulous connection speeds for all of his digital needs. I have troubleshot network issues in the middle of an active fire, plane fire, and live shooting environment. If he needs to know the finer details of Final Fantasy VIII lore, then I'm his man. I can make confusingly realistic seagull noises. Employment insurance. I'm absurdly good at making eggs. Not cooking in general, just eggs. Anesthesiologists of Reddit. What was something you won't forget hearing from someone that was under? My husband was put under to get his wisdom teeth out. He was a little anxious and also is just kind of anal. He's an engineer, so he read his pre-op instructions front to back like a dozen times. One of the things it said was, "You may experience profound disorientation upon awakening." As he woke up, he opened one eye and looked around the room. Then said extremely huffily, "I wouldn't call this profound." Then he started crying. My son, then 10 or so, was coming to after being under when getting his broken wrist set and casted. They had to do traction to get everything aligned or something. There were quite a few people in the room. But his drugged self directed all his attention to me. He was describing Big Daddy from BioShock and kept repeating, "Dad. You know what I'm talking about." Because I couldn't think of the name of the game at the time. Then he gets frustrated and yells at me, "You son of a bitch." Lots of laughs from the hospital staff. My husband had his ACL and meniscus repaired. When they brought him back into the room, he stared at me through half-closed eyes until the nurses left and then said, "I love you. I'm glad you're here." I melted. Then he conked back out for about half an hour and woke up with a big gasp. I thought he was in pain. That's how loud it was. And went, "Burger King burgerrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr too. So I had to get him a Burger King burger for dinner. He doesn't remember anything until he was back home several hours later with Burger King sitting in front of him. Lol. I was coming out of the fog of anesthesia from a colonoscopy. Apparently I didn't recognize my wife and refused her affections, telling her she was pretty. But I was married. Got big brownie points for that. Am an anesthetist woke up a 70 years old PT who got a penile prosthesis implant for erectile dysfunction. First thing out of his mouth in his post-surgery stupor was to request a private room and find out when he could take this baby out for a test drive. He was a happily married jokester. I was 17 at the time but got my wisdom teeth taken out. Everything went as planned. But I woke up and remember seeing the oral surgeon. Me. Being dosed with Greta giggle juice and having no idea WTF I was doing. Asked her if she would like to grab boba sometime. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. 5 years later. She let me shadow for part of my dental school shadowing requirement and is giving me a lure for applications next cycle. Not a boba date but all things considered. She was a great mentor. Subscribe, my brothers.